Hello everyone and welcome to today's talk on DevOps blockers and how to outmaneuver them. My name is Rob Gillam. I will be moderating the session, and firstly I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to join us today. We will be recording the session and making it available on demand at the Brial website. We'll also be taking questions throughout the session, and we'd love to have your input. So just click the question mark button on the right and let us know your thoughts. To join the conversation in real time, please use the Twitter handle #DevOpsBlockers. That's #DevOpsBlockers. So start today by introducing our speakers. Today we have Philippe Ensarguet, Group CTO of Orange Business Services, and Benjamin Brial, the founder of Cycloid. Ben and Philippe, welcome, and thank you for joining.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Rob. Hello, Ben. Really happy to be with you for this chat.
Yeah, definitely.
Great, thanks, guys. Really appreciate you taking the time. So, from our perspective, we've identified three main blockers. The DevOps talent shortage. We'll be talking about upskilling and empowering your team instead of trying to hire the skills needed to create a successful DevOps team. Then we're going to talk about building the platform, building a custom DevOps platform, and how to avoid the traps. And finally, talking about the move to cloud. It's a difficult journey, lots of strategic decisions to be made. One of those is infrastructure as code, and we'll be talking about thoughts on that. So let's kick off with so what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the three main blockers we've identified?
Well, it's a really good question, but before this, I think it's quite important to have an overlay about when we speak about DevOps. And why do we do all this, and do we spend some time to discuss over and over and over and over and over again on the DevOps and cloud? At the macro level, we should never forget that there is only 4 enterprises out of the 40 that are on the stock market that have more than 20 years. And the 4 are oil that will definitely die. So, I mean, we should never forget that we need to adapt. It's not a question of do I want, or it's a necessity. Otherwise, I mean, it's more probably that in the next 40 years, all the company that we know won't exist anymore, just because, I mean, what we see is that all companies need to adapt. If we deep dive a little bit on the DevOps, I mean, following the DevOps report 2021, there is 80% of the company that are struggling with the DevOps adoption and to scale it across the entire organization. And this is not only in 2021. I mean, it's since 4 years. I mean, and it's exactly the same numbers. So it's definitely something that for now we didn't succeed to, really make it happen. And I don't speak about, people that I speak with that believe, that it will never happen in the organization. And to finish, I think it will be the only thing that I would say on the introduction. I mean, following Gartner, we speak about a lot on Gartner. Gartner predict there is 75% of DevOps initiative that will fail to meet expectation, and this is not a small number. I mean, it's mainly the majority, whatever the number that you take, will just fail, due to organization problem, people skills, saying George Spafford, which is the research director at Gartner. And I mean, we all know a lot of organizations that believe that DevOps is not for them, too many silos, too many politics, too many people. So I would love to hear your opinion on this, Philippe. But I mean, at macro level, I mean, we need all to realize that we do believe, digital and DevOps, which is one part, definitely need to happen.
Yeah, for sure, Ben. You perfectly highlight how much DevOps has become a key approach to make companies relying on digital to be successful. What we observe is quite simple. First, the pace of the economy and the business has exploded. And today, as a consequence, the application and services are constantly evolving to match the customer needs, and as well to react to the competition. So the need for a faster delivery to reach the market is absolutely key in this context. And similar to this is what's happening in production in front of issues, where today we need to react very, very fast from a recovery. So it's about the full life cycle, from the think up to the operation of the service, and it's the full journey, it's the full life cycle. And it's for all these reasons that DevOps become absolutely essential to companies. But you started to introduce very interesting point, Rob and Ben, is that DevOps is a multifaceted topic, and a lot of blockers may happen. It's about the skills gap, it's about the tool fragmentations, it's about the culture shift at scale up to the executive, it's the potential opposition between teams working in silos, and a lot more. Here is my thought as intro.
Yeah,
Thanks for that.
definitely. I mean,
Thank-
it's quite interesting what you're saying, because when we speak about life cycle, product life cycle, before it was between 5 to 10 years, that you have the time to release and to make it happen. Now it's between 1 to 3 years. So imagine, when we speak like industries such as cars or whatever, they have to adapt so fast to make it happen, because we are living in a crazy world. Like, having changed everything from the next 1 to 3 years is completely crazy. Yeah, we will talk about it later, but we should never forget that we don't have time. We all know about it. But and thank you to be there to listen us. But yeah, time is really complicated to get.
Yeah, and that leads us into our first topic. Is all the teams, everywhere, all these organizations, all the companies, everybody's trying to go faster. And to go faster, they need more people. And this is where one of the biggest challenges we're seeing is the skills shortage. And we hear this over and over again. I've talked to some organizations that are trying to hire 3,000 DevOps professionals. This is just a crazy challenge, and we need to look at other ways to approach this. So that takes us on to our first topic, which is, how about upskilling and empowering your existing teams instead of trying to go out and to the market and find these very rare developers when every other company is trying to get the same people. So what are your thoughts? How can we approach this?
It's interesting when you speak about DevOps talent shortage, because it's something that is completely normal. We love to find the guy that will solve all the problem, or that will be able to do everything on their side. It's like, the sheep at 5 I don't know how to say this in English, but 5 foot. It's completely it's completely crazy. When we speak about DevOps, and I'm sure Philippe will agree with me, we speak about 3 things. We speak about culture, we speak about people, and we speak about products and tools. And we try to forget, when it comes to DevOps talent shortage, that 50% is repetitive task when it comes to people. Because definitely, the need to automate. So more we automate means less we have some tickets on production. And I even don't speak about the problem of freelance and conflict of interest. I spend my time speaking with mid managers, that are struggling between the top exec decision and between the DevOps shortage, that they can't find the right people, or even people don't come because they find another, another mission. So and between this conflict of interest, and I will give the hands to Philippe, which I do believe is quite important to hear what he's thinking on this. The question that they have is, do they really want to automate, or do they prefer to play with alpha open source tools, and build a complex ecosystem? Because at the end, we are all engineers, and we love to build complex ecosystem. So there is definitely upskilling topic that we will deep dive, but we should not be it's completely normal that there is some DevOps talent shortage, because this is how it is, right?
Yes, fully agree with you, Ben. And I prefer to talk about DevOps from a team's perspective rather than a personal one. That's why I'm always really amazed when people are recruiting DevOps, because DevOps for me is more a team than a people. But anyway, we are clearly on one of the first major blockers. Here, what I can say is quite simple. When you catch that a data center is software, network is software, storage is software, infrastructure is software, you are currently realizing that the software engineering way of doing things on the full stack of delivering services and application has turned software. And the interest of DevOps is that it's a perfect link between all of this, and it reshuffle and it reshape what you say, Ben, the culture, the mindset, the practices, and so on. And according to me, in front of the shortage in which we are, I think that no serious company can say that they will manage talent acquisition only by recruiting. It cannot be a successful strategy at all. So it thinks that we need to reskill and to upskill the people that we are working with into our company. And I think it's here one of my main points. I'm not sure that upskilling and learning is new. It's just the place and the pace that change the whole game. If I'm deep diving a little bit, basically, I don't know. We are doing computing science from decades, several decades, and I think that most of all the people working in this area spend their whole life to learn new things. Learning is the story and the essence of our job. So I'm not sure that learning is a problem, but the pace has absolutely changed the whole ecosystem. And learning, for me, has shifted from being the place, the location when you learn something, to, I would say, a daily routine, because you need to learn on your everyday basis to adapt your skills to the current pace of the business. So it's my first point. And basically, yes, it's the pace. We started to highlight how much the current business trends is moving so fast that the pace is really, for me, the things that definitively change the whole game. So learning is not new. It's just the pace and the volume. And something I'm pretty sure we will talk about, it's the tooling, because we may have a DevOps strategy in a very, very different kind of companies, from companies to hundreds of people to several thousands. The deployment journey is not the same, and the tool fragmentation can be as well in this story something that can be a real blocker, because the number of tools you need to be trained and skilled on maybe really complexify the game.
Yeah, it's quite interesting when you speak about upskilling, and this is a thought that I share to every people, and including inside Cycloid, where we develop tools around this topic. I mean, I know that all the people are not interested about DevOps, and this is something that we have to say and we have to see by fact, because it's too complex, as you said. There is too many tools. Following Gartner, I don't know if they are right or wrong, but doesn't matter the number that we pick. There is an average of 28 tools on the topic of infrastructures. I mean, how, even when we are an expert, we are struggling. And even, like, let's say, take some example, being an expert as a DevOps in AWS, GCP, and Azure, and Kubernetes, it's and VMware, it's 5 different skills. I mean, it's 5 different people. You can't be an expert in all this stuff. So the upskilling topic is really has to take care really different, because we need to think about this, because it's really complicated to make sure that everyone will become DevOps, and we shouldn't hide, believing that everyone. We should help the people that are willing to go on this topic to upskill them and take the time. And we know how we are all struggling with time, when it comes to dev, that they need to ramp up on all this topic. It's quite complicated, and even for DevOps, with the open source space, things are changing so fast. let's speak about Terraform. On the last 2 years, we had 4 breaking change, and I don't know how many versions that we have. So we even bring some legacy on the topic of upskilling and tools and cloud. So yeah, quite interesting what you're saying also.
And Ben, we both as well introduced the topic of culture, and we know the importance of this one. It's the big elephant in the room, and basically what is super important is that you can learn in Fraz code and you can learn how to use tool, but it's far more complex for the culture. And I'm pretty sure that it's the most complex part to change in the organization. And never forget the Conway law. You cannot pretend to have a way to design and to implement your services different than the kind of your organization is. So what I want to emphasize here is that we absolutely need to have executive owning the DevOps topic. They absolutely need to understand what's happening to make their teams being and taking the ownership of all the change that need to be made, basically. And in this journey to scale up to the company, definitively delivering awareness, giving tech literacy is absolutely super important, because I'm afraid that today perhaps some executive are missing or lacking in terms of tech understanding, and it's perhaps another kind of blockers, which are more political, like you introduced, Ben, to manage. But definitively, they must be part of the story as well if we want to be successful on this DevOps journey.
And allow some time, allow some time, which is quite complex, to give some time to help people, upskill them, being capable to contribute to open source software, which is at the end, helping the company becoming tech oriented, because we know that everything is about tech right now. Is it good or bad? I don't know, but this is how it is so far. So, it's like allowing people having the time to upskill, having a culture to help people upskill their skills, which is quite complex.
And that's why, Ben, according to my own experience, or on one-to-one session I have with customers and partners, that it must be a good average between, I would say, hard skill and soft skill. And perhaps you have heard about what we call the T-shapes skilled people and the I-shaped people with the depth of expertise. And basically, we are talking right now for a quarter, and basically we talk, I would say, more on soft skills than on tech skills. So it means that when you have to start your journey in DevOps, you must be super cautious about your people you will recruit to start your DevOps journey, and never forget that the soft skill part is definitively that will make the difference at the end of the journey. Because remember that learning is something that we in computing science are doing since decades. So this kind of profile is super important to start the journey.
Yeah, it's just to finish, it's really funny because I never understand how we can ask for the same people, like a DevOps, being the top expert in whatever the technology you like, and being the top guys in terms of communication. It's requiring, being like the guy that knows everything, and you can't, And we have all some people that we see in our organization that you can't be the top expert. Generally the top expert, and being really dedicated and focused, and in terms of mindset to a technology, and then really spend some time and going back to evangelization, why you should do like this, and spend some time with people, and have some skills, some soft skills, as you said, in terms of communication. And it's definitely something in my true conviction that I believe will never happen, because asking these two kind of hard skill and soft skills for the same person, yes, we all have some people like this, but at scale, it will never happen. You can't have like 200 people like this, because just like it's asking a lot of maturity. And when you have like 20, 25 years, it's you love to deep dive in technology, maybe spend a little bit less time to help your other people and all this stuff. And yeah, we see that our current society getting more and more individual, and even we don't speak about remote stuff, which is also quite a challenge when it comes to communication. So I mean, it's something that we need to definitely take in consideration, that maybe the DevOps guy that goes on evangelization and helping others are not maybe the top tech guys, but that's fine. We don't need 500 top tech guys, but we need 500 top guys that help on the communication, because communication and culture are the more important and more difficult things to do. I do believe, and I'm sure you agree on this, right?
Yeah, the cultures
Don't kill me, Robert. Don't kill me.
Culture's a difficult one to for organisations to grasp, because it's such a huge topic. One of the ways to sort of think about this is try and talk about something which is concrete and empowers your developers, gives them the ability to have the tools and have all the necessary infrastructure around them to have a great experience. So, and that's what it's about. A lot of the developers are joining organizations. They want to have a really good experience. So it kind of leads us into how do you manage all these tools? It's something concrete which organizations can actually start with. So you've got this temptation to build a platform to manage all the tools, to allow your team to get what they need. And obviously the temptation is to go out and possibly build that, or maybe you go out to the market and buy it. What are your thoughts about that build versus buy?
I mean, yeah, I will start maybe. I think whatever how you call it, DevOps platform, self-service portal, or life cycle management, DevOps tool, whatever you call it. I do believe, and this is what we see globally, that it is the only way to scale. Why? Because on the road to DevOps and cloud adoption, we see all the time the same things happen on every company. Everything on the dev side, and we see that it's not working, because at the end, when you need to scale it on production, I mean, it couldn't be done everything in a simple way. You need to develop some expertise. By the way, there is not any more people that speak about no ops, because no ops doesn't exist. I mean, it doesn't exist. So everything on the dev doesn't work. Then everything on the ops, this is what we see majority. We know dev on one side, ops on the other side. It doesn't work. It's bring a lot of frustration for the dev that doesn't understand that they can go on the public cloud with a credit card. They click and they have their they have their infrastructures, and then they spend 3 weeks to have something from the infrastructures team or DevOps team or whatever. So it doesn't scale. And then these companies that have lived, this everything on the dev, everything on the ops, it's like 10 years that things exist, even more, 25 years, I would say that dev, like ops, are, completely struggling with the tons of ticket that they have, but they have the habit, that is why by definition is starting by saying no as an ops more than yes. They start to build this custom DevOps platform, and this is where it's the problem, because it's the beginning of a new journey to develop a software to help the link between these dev that are not an expert, whatever how you call it, dev ops, traditional ops, solution architect. I mean, the 99% of the rest of the organization that are not DevOps, and this DevOps team that they build this kind of portal in the middle to simplify the number of tickets and give flexibility without losing the governance. And this is really complex. And I would love to hear what you think, Philippe, about this. This build versus buy and the fragmentation effect.
It's a complex topic. It's a complex topic because between a small company and a very large international one, and if you're doing services or product, you are in front of a very, very different situation. So definitively, tool fragmentation is a blocker for a DevOps journey, and it's even more a blocker when you have to consider that inside the silos of your organization, you have different, I would say, choice of tools. And when you need to make your organization moving to address new business challenges, it starts to become more than what we can say a nightmare. At the same time, what we absolutely as well need to keep in mind is that the temptation for the people on company is really high because of software is eating the world. Basically, we are almost like in gold rush, and never forget that the one who made their fortune were not the gold diggers, but the one who sold the shovels and the buckets. So there is a high pressure around this whole ecosystem. But anyway, Ben, I think that you point out here something that is, for me, perhaps the most important and certainly the next frontier our industry has to overcome. When will we start to talk about user experience? Not the user experience of the customer of our services, but the user experience of the team on which we rely to implement our services and product. And definitively, for me, it's a very valid question in terms of, I would say, efficiency, productivity, competitivity, and the way to, I would say, have a seamless and coherent journey in having access to all the set of tools implied in the pipeline, for me, is definitively one of the most exciting things that we have in front of us. We start to listen to concepts like developer control plane, self-care portal where you're able to handle the full life cycle, where the team is able to meet each all others. And why this topic is really important. Okay, we all say that culture is the ultimate goal to achieve for a company who want to jump into DevOps. But let's say you have 100 people in front of you. Ask to each of them what is culture. There is nothing more difficult to define than culture. And starting with tooling and starting with proposing a more coherent way of accessing and using tools, for me, as something very concrete and can have a federate aspect to the team. And why is it important? Because once you're able to bring people around a set of common tools, you're able to manage practices. And when you are at the practices level, the step after is the mindset. And when you have the tools, the practices, the mindset, honestly, the culture topic is not so far than this. So that's why definitively, I truly believe that what I call, or what we hear about, what we call the DevX, so the developer experience, is definitively the next barrier for our industry to overcome, to have people really focus about making their job without to reinvent every day which new tools to be introduced into the full pipeline. Here is what I thought about this, Ben.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with you. It's a little bit boring. I always agree with you what you're saying, Philippe, but I mean, that's fine. I mean, I will give a little bit of my history when it comes to a DevOps journey. When I've built Cycloid, I was thinking that DevOps was only a question about getting access to tools and automation. So, because in traditional organization or managed service provider, you don't give access to your automation more or less because you can't, because there is plenty of things, and it's on your side. So we thought that giving access to the tools, like in the GitOps approach, so everything on the Git, will solve everything about, just you get access, so you will continue to use this, to start to use the automation and to upskill and all this stuff. And by fact, managing 2,500 applications on production through various cloud, whatever, private, public, OpenStack, VMware, we saw that we had more tickets than before, just because it's not just only a question give access to the automation, is also how you give access to the automation. And the ultimate goal is that at the end, you have the GitOps approach. But you can't ask to anyone which is out of the blue about DevOps, and just like, have a little bit some knowledge about cloud and DevOps. Say, okay, change everything, on the automation that we have made. Even between DevOps, and I'm not an engineering, I see that between DevOps, there is some difference when it comes to automation in the way of how you develop Ansible, Terraform, and all this stuff. Even when you choose one technology, there is different way to do it. So I think what you say about the DevX is it's the key to help your organization scaling on the DevOps and cloud, because you can't expect from anyone like becoming a DevOps like a 2-day journey. It's a 3-year journey. It's not a 2-day journey. So you really need to take in consideration this developer experience and how do you simplify the way they are capable to address the tools and the cloud without losing the governance, because there is other things that I don't hear anymore, but it's important to say it. I mean, DevOps is not open bar, It doesn't mean that everyone have access to everything and all this stuff. I mean, definitely.
And Ben, you pointed out here something really, really important is what I observe or when I talk with my peers. Basically, we are in front of a very big scale effect to reach, because the situation is quite simple. We spend a lot of time to think, to design, and to roll out our infrastructure, to carry and to give engine to our services and products. But it's only the half of the way of the road. The other part is about the operation, about the monitoring, about the production, about the run. And basically today, a lot of company engage a lot of resources, I would say, to try to industrialize their journey up to rolling out the infrastructure, but they're only halfway. And that's why the journey and the GitOps topic you put on the table definitively is something to have in mind, because if we do not rely on automation or more automation to have more resilient or auto and self-healing environment in production, I don't understand how we are able first to scale from a competitive standpoint, and how we are able to track to the current pace of our business. So your point is very valid. We absolutely need to keep in mind this whole story. We have to think, design, and roll out platform, but we have to operate them. And when you did the rollout, you are only halfway. Never forget this.
So that's a great point. Industrializing the operations is a challenge for all organizations, and particularly when we're moving to the cloud, because it's a new way of working. It's a new way of dealing with your infrastructure. Not just from the initial rollout, but as you say, Philippe, all the way through the whole lifestyle of the application. And there's a lot of discussions about the development cycle. Perhaps we should talk more about actually using infrastructure as code and some of the more automated ways of dealing with cloud infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, first, I think what is important also to mention is let's not forget that we are not living on the one cloud strategy. I mean, all the people that explain me, or whatever the level that they are, that we are living in one cloud strategy, even if they decide to go on one cloud, between the decision and the reality, when it will maybe one day happen, it's like a life cycle product, it's 3 years minimum. So we are all living in the kind of hybrid cloud or multi-cloud decision. And I even believe that it's important that you don't put all the eggs, I don't know if we can say this in English, but all the eggs in the same basket. You need to make sure that you're not, locked to anyone. Doesn't matter when it comes to automation, cloud, or whatever. So I think what is really important is think global, think as a different cloud and different tools, and not be completely locked.
Your point is really valid, Ben, and you're right. Basically, moving to cloud is a complex journey. Becoming multi-cloud is even more challenging, but it's the reality for, I would say, most of the company. And I truly believe, regarding with what you said, that an overall foundation is absolutely needed to have a coherent approach into this whole deployment. And whatever is your multi-cloud strategy, full stack or best of breed. And according to me, this kind of foundation is relying on 4 pillars. The first one is about the connectivity to cloud. The second one is about the user identity management. Then we have the access control and the authorization. And for me, the last and perhaps most important pillars is about, I would say, infrastructure management. So yes, the topic about infra as code and how to use it to set a common language to abstract and to put a kind of overlay on top of the different implementation is definitively absolutely key in an hybrid or multi-cloud strategy.
Yeah. If we come back to the question that you've said about infrastructure as code to accelerate your move to cloud, there is one other thing that I do believe, and this is my own conviction, but I'm sharing to you. It's really important that you own your automation. So I think your infrastructure as code should be based on open source, even if open source is not perfect. I mean, whatever you like, there is no tools that are perfect. But owning your automation means that you can't build on the cloud provider your automation. I mean, you will pay it one day or the others, because at some point, if things are changing for whatever reason, and we have seen tons of time, I mean, you need to own your infrastructure as code, because when you have your infrastructure as code, you could have your developers that can ramp up on your infrastructure as code. You could have others people that change this infrastructure as code. But if you don't have the engine behind and that you rely on what others do, it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't scale. I mean, it definitely doesn't scale. And there is also, and I hear quite a lot about this problem of infrastructure as code, to write it, to maintain it, from the legacy one to the cloud native. There is people that come to see us and say, well, we have 2,500 traditional application. How do we make it happen? I mean, there is plenty of now open source technologies, Terraconita, Terraformer. There is plenty of them that are working to help you migrate this infrastructure as code. I mean, this legacy infrastructures to infrastructure as code, and to help you saving some time. And this is coming to the open source world. And there is also this question about, between the reality and the infrastructure as code. Yeah, I have a couple of people that does infrastructure as code, but the rest of the world don't do it. So there is plenty of people that does the change directly on the cloud provider, which have a lot of impact on this. There is also some open source software that help on this drift out of what we are doing at Cycloid, because we are focusing on it, but to help you to build this bridge between the traditional way, which have the business, which make the business today. 95% of the business come from the traditional application, and the new world, to help you building this bridge. I mean, I don't know what is your opinion about it, Philippe, but yeah, I'm quite sure that you have seen it also quite a lot.
Ben, I think that you highlighted something really important, and I will just repeat something I did previously about the DevOps. It's the same for the infra as code topic. It's not because you write down infra as code and you deploy the implementation of your infra as code on a cloud bearer, then you're done. You are only halfway, and you introduce something very valid about the drift control. The drift control is the production and run part of the infra as code topic, and we absolutely must, I would say, take into account the fact that if we do not understand how the infrastructure shifts, and when it shifts, it can really be a big danger and drive us to major outage. So definitively the drift control should be in the full scope. And and it's and I really like when you introduce Terra Cognita or Terraformer, because you're perfectly right. It's the right place to help, I would say, company and organization who want to take the ownership of their infrastructure to move to something with a more abstracted layer and representation. And first, the discovery and the production of the infra code is automatic. And secondly, I think that if we step back to the first topic about the gap of skills and the need of experts, it's definitively something that may allow to speed up, I would say, the production of future-proof infrastructure. So definitively, those kind of tooling are absolutely key in the way to migrate, I would say, to a software-driven way of doing infrastructure, but it's a key component of a full DevOps journey.
Yeah, and it's also help on the simplification. How many traditional ops are not going to the cloud or are not going to the DevOps because they have been, during 20 years clicking everywhere or whatever the software that you're using. It's completely normal. You can't ask to your team, the traditional one, do everything, be DevOps and cloud. It's not possible. I mean, you need to help them, and definitely having this capability to have the first step done, and then it's help with this person, for these people to start to change some small piece, but not everything, or starting from white blank and say, okay, yeah, we'll start and we'll use the 28 tools directly when we have nothing from the traditional infrastructures. I mean, VMware is 91% of the market on the cloud today. I mean, on the infrastructures. So we forget about it. And this is in US. So it's even less. It's 7% in France. So 93, sorry. We need to help these people build step by step to make it, infrastructure as code ready, and cloud ready and DevOps ready, whatever how you are calling it. And I think, yeah, it's quite important to see that there is plenty of open source software and proprietary software that helping you to build your automation, and that you own your automation on your side to help your organization becoming more DevOps oriented.
So great conversations. We're starting to run out of time. I just wanted to we have had a question, so I thought it'd be great just to get your feedback on this. So we've been asked, and it's a question we hear a lot about tools. Typically when you're talking to people about tools, the first question is, don't talk to me about tools. There's loads of them out there. So the question is, how do we decide which tools when we're thinking about tools? How are you thinking about making a decision making of what you're going to use and what's best to use?
So I will take the wrong way to say it, but I'm fine with it. No issues. I mean, Cycloid is not self-organization, but we are working on empowering people to take some decision and all this stuff. But at some point, when it comes to tools, a decision has to be made. You can't ask the DevOps guy, say, pick the one that you like, because by definition, what he likes and what he loves is finding these new open source tools that are in alpha, that are used by this new communication, this new guy that only the community knows. And at some point, it has to be a governance decision, a strategic decision that need to be coming, but you need to decide. And if we don't take some decision, which we are completely, I think we are the first one in France to don't take some decision when it comes to take some decision. You need to take it, whatever you like it. I give you a simple example: Ansible, Puppet, Chef. Whatever you like it, pick the one that you like. If you allow everyone to do whatever they want, but you will have Ansible, Puppet, Chef, and then when people will have to change, they will have to, relearn and blah blah blah. Tech people doesn't like to choose; they like to, plenty of things. But at some point, it has to be a strategic decision, and it has to be taken. I know how hard it is for enterprise layer, But at some point, I mean, we need to take our courage and say, this is this, and this is not that.
A great answer. We got to decide on something. Yeah.
But I let you answer, Philippe. Then.
No, I think that we are nearly out of time, and I think it's time to hand over to Rob perhaps for a conclusion.
Yeah. So just to wrap it up very quickly, we we thought there were three main blockers, and clearly there's more. I think what's come out of the conversation is that the culture is certainly the one of the most difficult topics for a company to get its arms around. And certainly part of that is the developer experience, and we've talked a lot about the tools, and tools is something concrete, so it's a good place to start. Allow your developers to have the tools they want and need, but also put some governance around it and allow access to those tools, which is where the DevOps platform approach comes in. And finally, it's a complex journey. GitOps, infrastructure as code, all have a part to play in the migration strategy, and we're sure we're going to see more of that and talk more in the future. So thank you, guys. Really appreciate you spending the time, and everyone that's listening. And that's it for us. So enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you,
bye-bye.
Philippe. Thank you, Philippe.
Thank you,
Thank you, Rob. See you.
Bye.